now going to move to archaeological finds with Dr. Ian Betts. Would you like to come up while I introduce you? So Dr. Betts holds a PhD from the University of Bradford in Yorkshire, with a thesis on the brick and tile industry of York to 1750. Following a bachelor's that he took in geography and geology from the University of Kiel. From 1982 to 2023, he worked as building materials finds specialist at the Museum of London Archaeology, where he continues to collaborate after retirement, training new specialists and contributing to research projects in London, Northampton, Surrey and Kent. He's journal editor of the Tiles and Architectural Ceramics Society and committee member of the Mill Hill History Society. He has more than 100 publications, and his major works include medieval Westminster floor tiles, Spanish tin glazed tiles from Woking Palace and other sites in southeast England, which is what he's going to be talking to us about today in his talk, and also tin glazed tiles from London. So thank you very much, Ian. We're very much looking forward to what you have to say.
Oh, yes, thank you. Which button do you use? I feel a bit of an interloper here because I'm not a curator, I'm not an expert on Spanish ceramics, I'll tell you that in advance. But I thought it might be sort of use it a different perspective from an archaeological perspective. I thought about just talking about Valencian tiles, but then I thought it might be interesting just to sort of have a very, very quick overview of the use of tiles. This is London in London area, because some of it is relevant to what I'm going to say later on. So that's what I'm going to do. And then there'll be a very brief, extremely brief summary of what happened after the use of Spanish tiles. I'm going to look at Valencian, but it seems silly, as in Spain, not to talk about tiles from Seville, which I'm going to talk about. And there's a light twist in the story regarding Spanish tiles at the end. And then there's some last research, which is due to be published any minute. So just some nice tile plaques, but we'll finish off there. So just to get a sort of background in just general on tiles in the London area or England, it's mainly England, but I'll mention Scotland briefly. Right, so the earliest tiles in decorative tiles in Britain are it's Saxon tiles. So we're about 950 to about 1050. So we're talking about they came in before the conquest, Norman conquest in 1066, which is about the only date that most young people know about history these days. So it's a bit, cool anyway. So let's have a look at my stuff. So we've got 3 in London, and we got 2 from the site of the Roman amphitheatre in the Guildhall Yard area, and they came from St. Lawrence Jewry Church, and on the screen is the only complete one we've got. And the other one is from Westminster Abbey when it was a Benedictine priory. So we've got 2 sites of these things. That's all I wonder about. The interesting thing where's that going back? Right. The interesting thing about these is that they've got ridges which separate the glazed colours. And we'll obviously see that later on when it comes to tiles from Seville. As for where they were made, we know that they're made in northern England in York. And we did scientific analysis. I did scientific analysis, proved that they actually made in York. Then we've got some in the Midlands of England, in the Coventry, sort of north of England, Midlands, and that's a separate clays. And one of the things that we do when we do archaeology and looking at ceramics is that we look at the clays, the sources of clays. We do a lot of work, huge amount, staring down microscopes. It's tedious, but it does provide some really good results when you want to look at the origin of where things came from. And we also do scientific analysis like XRF and NAA earlier on, and thin section petrology. And then we've got a third group which are found in the London area and southeast. And my view is they probably came from the Winchester, which was a sort of Saxon foundation, because they're very similar to the roofing tiles. Everybody ignores the roofing tiles in Britain. They all go for the nice, flashy, especially in museum collections. So you've got lots of floor tiles, but other building material isn't really well represented. But it actually tells you quite a lot. So because the roofing tiles from Winchester, probably local, they don't move much, they're low value products, and they've got an identical fabric to the decorated Saxon tiles. I'm pretty sure that's probably where they come from. And the London ones are also very similar to Winchester, not made in London. There's absolutely no. So what we might have is this idea of itinerant production. Maybe they started in the south, went to the Midlands, and then went to Northern England, or maybe they went over Northern England, went to the Midlands and went into the south. But generally, and this is view at floor tiles and things, that there wasn't itinerant production. Things were settled. There's various economic reasons I can go into as to why tiles. It was the tiles moved and not the tile makers themselves. Again, it's just a general overview. Might be interested. So the first big group is called the Westminster floor tiles, and they are from Westminster. They were first recognised in Westminster Abbey, dating. Well, we've got the dates up there, 1250, 1300, might shuffle into the 14th century, but we don't really know. But what we do know is the kiln sites that were found at Farringdon Road. This is Westminster tile kiln. It's quite a large one because it's got 3 vent holes. You can't see it now because it's under the Metropolitan Railway, but they did record a few fragments before it was demolished. So that's one of my areas of expertise, is to catalogue all the Westminster floor tile designs, which is a labour of love because it's great. I love working with tiles and piecing them together and getting the designs and things. So yes, it was a great fun. And that's one of the ones. They're not the best of quality, but there's quite a nice range and diverse designs and things. So that's in the Museum of London as antiquarian collection as well, in the archaeological collections. And there's the distribution. I put the distribution on because I'm going to hammer home the point in that you can see London in the middle there. I don't think it's actually marked, but it's a little square blob in the middle above Richmond. So that's where they're made, and then the tiles were then moved out. It wasn't tile makers wandering around, hopping around the country. They actually moved out to various locations. And we looked at the clays, and they're identical to ones in London, so we know it's the tiles that's moved and not the tile makers. So that's a useful thing to know. As for use, they're everywhere. So you've got most parish churches in London have got them. Most monastic buildings have got Westminster tiles. Most palaces have got Westminster tiles. And if you look on the map, most of those are priories and castles and abbeys. So it's big, important stone buildings that had these Westminster tiles in. We also know, because we found waste material, the kiln's gone, but we've got waste material next door, and they were made by I have to say this, so it's a hospital priory of St. John of Jerusalem, which is a bit of a mouthful, and there's quite a few examples of floor tiles being made by religious organisations. So in York, the Vicar's Call, Van kilns and the Lees kilns out. So it's not unusual that sort of monastic or sort of a religious organisation made floor tiles. Right, next one. I wasn't going to do this, and I'm going to leave those out, but I thought it's brand new information that nobody will know about, so I thought I would add it in. There's another group of tiles. Westminster tiles continued to about 1300, 1305, and they were replaced by tiles from Elton Palace, what they call the Elton Palace group. They were first found by Elizabeth Eames, and she has done tremendous work on medieval towels. So if you want to know about medieval towels, then the catalogue of the British Museum towels, which was done by Elizabeth Eames, is absolutely fantastic. It's the go-to thing. And I was lucky enough to hear her speak and chat to her before she died. So a lot of the work on, so I've sort of built on the foundations of British Museum collections, really. Eltham Palace, the earliest ones are in Beck's Chapel, 1305, and Beck's Chapel is the bit on your right. The bit on your left is, it's a 1930s edition, and totally off topic here, but if you're ever in London and you want to go to sort of 1930s style house, well, the Eltham Palace is wonderful. It's a fantastic build. It's used for film sets. If you want a 1930s sort of Art Deco film set, that's where the Eltham Palace. So that's my plug for the tourist board for Eltham Palace. These are the tiles. They're different designs. But but for a long time we didn't know where they were found, and we can say I knew from the distribution. Again, its distribution tells you an awful lot from where things are found. Even if you don't know, if you plot the distribution, you have a good idea of where they were made. So we thought West London or the next county along East Kent. And a few weeks ago, I was told excitement from my new person who's taken over my job. He found some decorative tiles in Woolwich, exactly in the location from the distribution, and thought we will. So we've now got a second tile kiln in the London area making tiles. You won't find that in any publication or anything because it's like I say, it's brand new information. So I just thought I'd mention it if anybody's interested. I sell the tiles, they're literally just in the washing. What we do is dig them up, put them in, wash them, and then put it in the drying room. So I have a good route round the drying room to see what new stuff. So that was exciting. So I'm really hoping to look at those when they come up. Again, it's very just brief, but it gives you an idea. And this is going to be a bit relevant later on. The big tile group is pen. They're everywhere. Cheap, nasty. You can see that they've lost some of the pattern because they were very cheap and they used to use minimum clay. So when they smoothed them off, quite often the clay smudged, so especially around the edges and things. But again, you don't hardly see a cathedral or a church or a apartment in London that hasn't got pen tiles. They're just, like I said, they're everywhere. Most of them after the Black Death, I can't remember the Black Death, but I think it's 1348, 49, but most of them are 1350, 1390. Last documentary evidence is 1388, so we just rounded up to 1390. And that's just a typical pen tile. And this is a distribution. It looks like a sort of rash or something, sort of a disease rash. But it's difficult to tell, but you do have London in the middle, a sort of square blob, and somewhere hidden in there, I can't point to, but sort of in the sort of topish left side, in between all that big blobs, is Pen. It's a nice little village in Buckinghamshire. So where celebrities go when they're on television, when they want to retire and then have a nice house, they go to somewhere like Pen. Not that I'll retire, that's not an archaeological wage anyway. Right. The important point is that when pen tiles finish in sort of, say 1400, that's the end of decorated floor tiles. There's nothing there. So in most of Greater London, I've looked at Surrey, which is the county to the west. I've looked at North Kent, and there are no decorative tiles. So when the tiles come in from Valencia, decorated tiles, there's no competition. So if you want to know why did the tiles all come from Valencia all the way into London and other places, is that there are no other decorative tiles I could use. I think that's one of the reasons. I expect there are other reasons. That doesn't mean to say that there's no tiles from 1400. There was lots of tiles, but they were all sort of plain, rather boring ones from Low Countries. We call them Flemish. Either would do. Officially Low Countries, but Flemish is easy to say. And they are everywhere. But these tiles are got a massive distribution, not just in London, but the whole of the east coast of England and Scotland. So they're coming in across across the North Sea from Belgium and the Low Countries, and so you get them in Scotland, you get them in Yorkshire, all the way down into London and Kent. There's no no general study of these. I always think there's a sort of PhD in the making, and it would be a fantastic PhD for somebody, but it's not going to be me at my age, but hopefully somebody will come along and do it. They're all the same. They're all yellow, and then you've got dark green, dark brown, occasionally black, and they're all in a checkerboard pattern. I do like this one because it's from the Charterhouse. It's an in situ floor, and we get very, very few in situ floors. Most of the tiles I look at are in plastic bags with dirt around them. So, but it's nice to actually get in situ. The other difference, I'll keep an eye on the time. The other difference is that they don't change, but in the Tudor period they decide, well, we'll do something different, we'll do something dramatic. So we changed from about that big 6-inch to about 9-inch, and that's obviously the height of excitement when it comes to Flemish tiles. We get some slightly bigger ones. Wow! But it does mean we can date them because the big ones are sort of Tudor, so 1480s. They go on to about 1580, 1600. We've got it down to I've got it down to about 20 years. After that, they come in, but they're not glazed, because we've got other glazed material coming in. So they continue on into the 17th century. And so that's the slightly bigger one with Julian Boucher, who's my colleague. I think it's Greenwich. I lost the caption, unfortunately. But I'll just flick back in a minute. So slightly bigger, slightly smaller. So that's the medieval ones, and those are what we got Tudor. So going on to Valencia. Right. Obviously, it's got my name on it on the front cover, but actually a lot of the information was provided by Anthony Ray, who'd already been mentioned with his work on pottery and tile. So he provided a vast amount of information, came over and looked at the material. So really, it should be in Betts and Anthony Ray. And for the other big publication I did, like I said, I mentioned Betts and Weinstein, Tingley's Tiles from London, he wrote the chapter under his own name on Spanish tiles from Seville. So I'm not going to repeat. So this is a distribution. We got, coming from the sort of bottom left, so we've got Guildford, Woking Palace. We've got two sites in Guildford, Woking Palace, the little pencil blob which I put on just before I took the picture, that is a new site, that's Byfleet Manor. London, we didn't have any from London when this came out, but now we know that they are from London, but the London ones are very different, and we're not quite sure why, but I'm happy to comments that you might have about that. Dartford and Billericay. So bear in mind, there's very few that are extremely widely spread, so which is a bit strange. So I'll go through each one. I just want to sort of get an idea of the building of the sort of. So the Woking Palace, most of them were found in the moat when they were excavating. Divers came down and found. There's very little left. There's just basically two walls you can see, and part of one of the buildings, which has now been used as a sort of barn. Otherwise, there's virtually nothing there. But it's nice to see. I always think it's nice to see, if you're talking about the place, it's nice to see what it looks like, rather than just me showing you endless pictures of tiles and things. That's a reconstruction. So one of those buildings, or a few of those buildings, would have had the Valencian floor in it. I'm not quite sure which of those is the standing one, but it's quite. I do like reconstructions. Right, I've got to look at my notes now. So this is Valencian. Yeah, one of the. There's 6 designs basically. So I have to go and look at my notes before I do anything else. Right. Yeah, so 60 designs. Most of them, the dating isn't too tight. So we've got some are sort of early, mid 15th century, some are late 15th century. So we just put a general timeline of about 1450 to 1500 for the Valencian tiles. We've got this design. I've got a few of this and things. So what we did was get all the bits together and reconstruct them. That's Faith who's did this. She's our drawing expert. She's actually still in the department. She's an old timer like me. And then, which I quite like this, so she's got the bits and then reconstructed what the whole pattern was like. So which I think is very nice. So we've got 6 designs, 5 are square ones, but we've also got rectangular one. And from basing on what happened with medieval tiles is that I think these are border. They run in a sort of strip. Medieval tiles, basically you have decorative designs, like panels of decorative designs separated by a single row of used quite often plain tiles, sort of those strips. And I think this is repeating it, so you'll various square designs separated by this border tile, repeating border tile. I think that says, we don't know because we haven't got an in situ, but I think that does make sense if you know the medieval material beforehand. Yes, right, date. I've got to look at my notes now. We're not sure when they were added, but there's a probable date of 1485 when Margaret Beaufort, mother of Henry VII, took possession of the manor house, or perhaps in 1505, when Henry VII decided to transfer it from a manor house into a royal palace. The 1485 date will probably fit better. Because it's unlikely they're going to be quite late as 3. So right. So we don't really know why Westminster tiles, because there's no tiles from Valencia were used. So we just got to speculate as to why they used them. But I think if you've got 200 years of, well, I'm not so dull, but you've got 200 years of lead glazed tiles, all brown and yellow. And then you come in and you've got these beautiful tin glazed tiles with the blue and white with spectacular designs. And they must have had this, if you go through, and must have had this wow factor. You've got the latest ideas, you've got the latest tiles to go with it, and the latest designs. So it's very much a status symbol showing that you've got the height of modern design in your buildings and things. So I think it's very much a status, which is why they're in sort of the palace at Woking. Right. There was one tile from Newark Priory, and it's very near Woking Palace. And when I wrote the original art, I was a bit dismissive, thinking, no, it's probably just come from Woking Palace. But looking at it, I think actually I was probably wrong in that I think it's probably from the palace, from the priory itself, because it was found with lead glazed medieval tiles in 1948, and they just say marked Newark on the side, and it's just about 1.1 kilometre from Woking Palace. So I don't know which design. Trying to get access to archives is a bit difficult, but well, anyway. So one thing I'm just going to whiz back because I missed something. important. Woking Palace has got a reference to Portingale tile in 1534, and these are presumed to be Portuguese or Spain. But the problem is that we haven't got any tiles in Woking Palace that fits that date. So if anybody has any idea what Portingale tiles, which could be of around 1534, could be, then I will be very interested. But we don't know. It's rather puzzled everybody, really. And they're not going to be Woking Palace because the Valencian tiles because they're too late. So right, whizzing on. So Guildford High Street. So there's one from Tunsgate, Guildford. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's near the High Street. And it said it could come from a building in the High Street, which became the Three Tons Inn. And is believed to be decorated floor tiles in the mid-16th to early 17th century with Antwerp tiles. So if it's already had later Antwerp tiles, then it may have had earlier Valencian tiles. But one tile, we'll see that today, it's got a crest. I quite like that one because it's in blue and manganese or purple. There's a debate whether you call manganese or purple. The Dutch called what we call manganese. They did actually use the term purple for their tiles. So the next, that's another one from Woking, from Guildford Manor. Right, Guildford Manor is a house. It's a hunting lodge. It's about further away from the Guildford town centre. It's about 2.5 kilometres. There were considerable repairs in 1514, but again, no mention of tiles, and the building was demolished in 1607. So we've very little information about when the tiles were used at all. So I jumped ahead a bit. So I think that's Woking Palace, Guildford. That's Guildford. I've got two on my screen, so it's getting me confused. Right, so that's the one from the centre of Guildford, and that's the one from Guildford Manor with a Woking Palace. It's this sort of flower head, we call it sort of Tudor rose design. And there's one or two of that, they all seem to be the same design from Guildford Manor, and that's another one which has been drawn. The new site is the pencil splodge on the map, which I added, and that's Byfleet Manor. And they've got, I'm going to just whiz forward a bit, and they're probably rectangular designs. We've only got small, that's the best fragment, but they may be rectangular designs, or rectangular design, I should say. It's been suggested that they may be added during the reign of Henry VIII, that's 1509 to 1546, when Byfleet was granted to Sir Anthony Browne, who had lodgings in Woking Palace. Well, if he's got lodgings in Woking Palace, it is possible that he might have actually got the tiles from there and transferred them to Byfleet Manor. Rather than they went directly to the Byfleet Manor itself. It's just a suggestion. Oh yeah, and that's there isn't any. There's only bits of the mansion surviving in the current manor house, but we do have a sketch 19th century. So you see it's a big building, it's a prestigious building. So in one of those buildings would have been the Valencian tile floor. So if you peep through the windows, you might have seen a beautiful blue and white floor in there somewhere. What's in it? Right, this is good. The oddity, and when it comes to Valencian tiles, is that this is the only building in Essex which have got them, and they're also in a very odd location. The tower is, I'll look it up, because there's some debate about the town. Pat Ryan thinks it is 1496, and brick expert Terry Smith, who neither of us are with us. Unfortunately, most of the specialists in ceramics are either dead or retired, unfortunately. We don't seem to get many new people coming into the subject. But David Andrews suggests the tower could be earlier. So, and the Valencian tiles had been dated by Anthony Ray to 1450, 1475. So the 1496 date for the tower is a bit later. But if it is a little bit earlier, and Anthony's date can become the other way, they probably might meet in the middle. It's why they were added is a bit of a mystery, and we'll go on to the next one. And they're in the porch. So there is 6 tiles. Bottom left is one of the rectangular ones. There's two shields and 3 with a sort of, well, you'll see the next design. It's an oak leaf, similar design. That's probably the best preserved. Unfortunately, they're a bit dirty because it's next to the main road and we're not in the best of states. Why they were added is a bit of a mystery because the Billericay isn't, well, even now it's a sort of sleepy town in Essex. There's no real sort of particular significance of market town. So why they were added there and nowhere else, I don't know. But I don't know, maybe it's harking. I just noticed people were talking about Spanish bowls in walls, so perhaps we might park back to the idea of sticking ceramic tiles in the walls of buildings. But there's no, as far as I know, as far as people know, is that there's no other examples of medieval or later tiles actually in the walls of buildings. So it is a bit why Billericay and why they stuck them in there. We haven't a clue, really. Another oddity, another oddity is a single tile from Dartford High Street in Kent. And again, I rely on Anthony Relay for all this information. He said that the feathery leaf design, he says, is wholly typical of Valencian tiles in the second half of the 15th century, so 1450, 1500. He said it might be a version of Carpenter's ads, probably pronounced that wrong, that appear on Spanish tiles along with a saw as emblems of the Carpenter's guild. Alternatively, it could be a set square, which is also obviously used by carpenters. So he thinks, because it's quite large, that it was a sort of trade or guild symbol, and this actually may have been set on the outside of a wall, but not for decoration, as to advertise who is the trader, the trader actually inside the building. The other thing I'm supposed to point out is if it does indicate the presence of a carpenter or joiner, that the vast majority of buildings in 15th century and before, of course, were timber. So virtually every major town would have a carpenters and joiners and things. So in fact, some of the earliest buildings, not an expert on vernacular architecture, but some of the buildings seem to be still wooden. Right, London. Where I live now. London was very different because, and I don't know why, and I'm happy to take ideas, in that we've got we've got these hexagonal ones, I just pointy-ended ones, and they would have been used with square tiles. And we've got 2 from one from Blackfriars, one from Islington, all the same design. They've all got these sort of nice purple flowers on, which I quite like. And this is the same design, complete one from the British Museum. So we've got a similar one, which you'll see in a minute. This is Temple Church, which I photographed, founded in 1162 or 1163. They haven't made up their mind which one it is. It's on 2 different dates on the same information board. But the important point is Temple Church, they did restoration work in the 1840s. In the middle of that, you can see this wonderful, I think it's wonderful anyway, Valencian tile with exactly the same designs that I found elsewhere in London. Just for interest, the medieval tiles, Westminster, and got bits of pots too, and they sort of pointy thing. I've no idea what that is, but anyways, it was nice to find that. The hexagonal ones I've also found in Greenwich Palace. I have no idea, I just nicked that from the internet like most people. But as you see, it's a substantial building, and it's a sort of palace that would have had a very high quality decorative floor with Valencian tiles in. We've only got it is an inscription, we've only got a little bit of it, but it was somebody in the British Museum, apologies, I've forgotten her name, but I've spoken to and seen her, and she has suggested, she's updated the museum catalogue to put the information from Betts and Weinstein in, actually, which is nice for once, and she thinks this is similar. It might not have had the do-good inscription in the middle, but you can see what it would have looked like. And that's how it would have been constructed. So you would have the pointy ones, and then they would have been round square tiles. We haven't got any of the square tiles yet, but they're again, because they're so incredibly rare, they must be around. We've just not found them in the archaeological record, but they would have been found. We also have, again, these are very, very bizarre, in that we have two tiles with this design in relief. This is from King Edward's buildings in London. So, don't know much about these at all. They've done scientific analysis of them, and they were thought at first to be Low Countries, and I think they were Betts and Weinstein as Low Countries, but I did other people, and I've looked at other catalogues, and they're definitely Valencian. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But when you compare them to one of the Woking Palace design, it's very similar. One's got a bar going under the top and over, and the one's got it in reverse. So it's obviously roughly the same design, but one flat and one in relief. But I can't really say much else other than that, because I haven't seen any other pass. So we've got two, and that's it. One London and nowhere else. The mystery is why Valencian tiles are different from everywhere else. And again, any ideas will be welcome. Seville, nice pictures, nice tiles. I haven't been to Seville, but I'm hopefully one day will. I'm doing it very quickly now. So basically, there's the Kurder Stecker tiles, and I apologise if I've spelled that wrong. They're from All Hallows Church in London, and with very few of them. I think we've only got one on the right-hand side and only a couple of the left-hand side. All the others are the Arista type with the raised pattern to separate the glazed colours, which of course is exactly what the Saxon tiles would do. So they were fired flat, I presume they were fired flat, in order so that the glaze didn't mix and things. Again, a lot of them are All Hallows Church, but they're in the antiquarians collection, so we don't know a lot about them. You'd be lucky if you just got anything other than London in most of the collections, and they're not good on telling you exactly where things came from. And we've got another lot from the same church. The one I really like is St Botolph's Lane, and it's a Moorish design. What we haven't done is we haven't looked at the distribution of tiles from Seville around Britain. It's something that we need to do. I think there's a paper written 30 years ago, but the problem is, and we'll see this, a lot of the tiles that are being said that for Spanish tiles from Seville aren't, and that's the problem, and you'll see why very shortly. Ones that are definitely Spanish tiles are the ones from St Mark's Church in Bristol, Bristol being in the West Country, if anybody doesn't know that. And a friend of mine sent some from another church as well, but I've lost the email. But that's got them in situ. Just a little point, if you're looking at a floor and you see pristine ones next to warm ones, it just tells you that being reused, it's not in the original position. So just a little tip, if you're looking at decorative floors, look to see if they're all the same wear pattern. They disappeared, again, I don't know how much time I've got. 5 minutes, right. So they disappeared because they were really eased out. So Valencian tiles were eased out by the tiles from Seville, and they took over because they were multicoloured and things, and they were the hit thing to do, more fashionable. And then the Seville tiles were pushed out by the tiles from Antwerp and things. So there was a succession. And these are some of them, and these have got the same, I'll just whiz forward one, same sort of pointy hexagonal ones with plain tiles in the middle. They were also used extensively in palace and very important public buildings in London. There's not much work done outside London about where these are found, but that's new with Bridewell Palace. I don't think I've got a map, unfortunately, with it on. So that's, yeah. The other thing is, if you're looking at tiles, let's say there's the Betts and Weinstein volume, Tingley's tiles in London, if you're interested. But there's also an update in this, it's the English Ceramic Circle, and that's got all the material that have come up recently, because I'm trying to keep up to date by publishing things that are coming up, because otherwise they'll never get published for a long time. So I'm trying to keep it up to date with new information on tiles that's coming up, including Spanish tiles as well, of course. That's Bridewell Palace itself. You can see it is a very, very big building. Right, so we got Antwerp tiles, and then later on we've got tiles being made in Britain. It's a whole new story, but the first pothouse was at Aldgate it's the one north of the river in Tower of London. It's sort of top right, and they started making Tingley's tiles, decorative Tingley's floor tiles, in around circa 1571. And the Aldgate pothouse continued to circa 1615 or 1620. The map shows all the pothouses. I say pothouses because they make pottery. They were making pottery, and tiles were just a small part. They were pothouses. And the ones in black made pottery and tiles, and the ones in white just made pottery. There's a little map which I'll refer to later on. Right, we'll whisk through this very quickly. Ignore that. Right, end of Tingley's production, 1800. Not quite, no. What we need, one of the reasons we don't know a lot of things about Spanish, we don't know if they are Spanish tiles, is Frederick Gerard made Spanish copies of Spanish tiles at the Millwall Pottery in London in 1871 to about 1895. His successor took over until about 1905, but I'm not sure, we're pretty sure that he didn't make sort of copies of Spanish tiles. And here are some, and they're very, very good copies. They've fooled quite a few museum collections around the world who come down to us. So it's 16th century Seville, and it's not. And this is the location. So there's London, and there's a location on Millwall Pottery. Unfortunately, he died of diabetes. I forgot the date now. So he didn't. He was only sort of a couple of decades he made them, and there was no cure for diabetes then. So just another. He made ceiling tiles. Ceiling tiles are easy to spot because, of course, they wouldn't have been glazed if it had been an original Seville tile and things, because they lasted on the floorboard and the ceiling joists. Just a copy of them, jarred. So it is something really wonderful. Right up to date, I took this 2 weeks ago. The building itself is 1890, it's looking pretty grim. It's got a metal grey gate across. But they're doing building work and the gate was open, so I just let in very quickly before somebody shouted, "Oh, you, get out! What are you doing here? You weirdo, photographing our tiles." I don't know how that's going to translate into Spain, but anyway, I came in, and it's got a whole wall covered in wonderful Spanish tiles. The other wall has got one design with 2 decorative tile plaques in, but as we're getting close. But I thought, yes, may never get another opportunity. Unfortunately, the grill is across, so you can't, aside, so you can't photograph them otherwise. But I thought, yes, please. And God, thank you. That's another one. I'll just show you there. That was an earlier one. I went when I was doing Betts and Weinstein. They didn't have a metal grill across, so they were open then. But we did. They've got these wonderful tile plaques. There, I'm leaping ahead now. My talk. Right. Anyway, the Antonin Maria, again, the great god of everything Spanish and Seville. He gives a date about 1700 and things, and we think that the crest is Isabella and Frederick and Isabella from Spain, and the similar initials, style of initials on a tile plaque. And if anybody knows where that tile plaque is, please tell me, because it's on lots of Google images, but I cannot find where the location. And then as I'm going to be thrown out, I'll leave you one. That's my favourite one. That's Billericay Church with one of the lovely shields. Anybody knows what the shield is? Again, all information will be helpful. Sorry, a bit rushed at the end.
It's absolutely fascinating to see all of those amazing tiles. I think we've got about 5 minutes for questions, and then we're going to go to a sort of round table to get everybody up here and get some. So Aswin's going to put some chairs out for the other speakers. I was just wondering if you could say, I mean, maybe it's a bit difficult to tell this considering the conditions in which the tiles have been encountered, but I think Billericay, you mentioned there would have been one room with a paved floor. So do we think there's just one sort of significant space in these buildings that would have had tiles in?
It's impossible to tell, really. So because we haven't got any in situ, we don't have any parallels. I mean, at least when it comes to Westminster tiles, then Westminster Abbey, we know that various buildings, various rooms were paved with these.
Yeah.
But because you've got no in situ and we've only got small amounts, it's impossible to say. But the small amounts would suggest that it's either one room or two, and that presumably the cost of bringing them over.
That's what I'm wondering, is the sort of high value, like
That's
I think these
value,
are luxury
yes, luxury items, so you're probably not going to be able to, unless you're incredibly rich, probably not going to be able to have more than one room, or at least two. But
thank you so much. Oh, we've got a question from Anna.
Thank you very much. It was fascinating. Did Frederick Gerard sell to museums as reproduction tiles? Because I know in Dublin we have quite a lot of tiles that are supposed to be from Seville, but I wonder if they are reproductions.
I'm not sure it's out to museums, but I do know a person who would know. And the man who is, so pass on your email if you remind me, is Chris Blanchett, and he is currently writing an article which should be published. Unfortunately, I beat him to it, and I pushed him to next year, so I hope he's still speaking to me. But and he has done all the detailed background research. So he's done everything that you would ever want to know about Frederick Gerard.
Thank you.
And if he does, he may well have that information.
Can you say his name again?
It's Chris Blanchett.
Great.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the nice overview, Ian. Just two observations. The tile that's on the screen, we both know, but the public doesn't. Exactly the same one occurs in the Dunes Abbey on the Flemish coast. Really exactly the same. And we don't know whose emblem it is, so any suggestions on that emblem, heraldic motif, are welcomed. It's definitely not Flemish. And the second observation, I wasn't really aware of that yet, but now I am. The non-heraldic tiles you showed to us, so the more geometric ones, the decoration with the flower, the ferbi, These also occur, exactly the same motifs occur along the Flemish coasts and in some Flemish towns. So it seems that they have been, while they're indeed quite high status, but it's the same batches that come in. They come in with the ships from the Portuguese and also the Italians, take them to Bruges. So maybe there are some kind of export batches, general motifs that can be used for those who can afford it, along with the more personalized tiles like that one.
The Billericay, I should mention that the Billericay tiles have all got Woking Palace. So there's the Surrey group, which all seem to be the same, and the Billericay ones it's the other side of London. Different, they're all the same, yes. So this idea that they've come in as one boatload or a few boatloads and then spread out, they come in at roughly the same time would make sense, really.
And it's exactly also the period that Edward IV is also present in Flanders. He's exiled and he's with the Dukes of Burgundy. He is in Bruges. He is also in the Dunes Abbey, probably, we think. So it can have something to do with that also, I think.
Yeah.
But that's far-fetched, I admit.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
That's fascinating, thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you very much for your talk. Some of the tiles from I think it's Billericay and King Edward's relief are exactly or very close to some found here in the Royal Palace from the early 15th century. And we found also that.
Which ones? You want to know which ones? This one?
No.
Next?
No. This with the strips.
A sort of interweaving
Yes.
design.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
what I think are going to be.
Yes. There are one painted.
This
one. That's it, yeah.
No, the other.
Go back.
No, sorry.
The previous. This.
Okay.
And
that one, yes.
And we thought that the relief version is more or less related with the tradition of the ¿cómo se llama esto? The cutted small tiles.
Tile mosaic, alicatado.
Alicatado.
Yes.
No?
We've got
Alicatado.
those Spanish ones,
Tile
Yes.
mosaic.
but
Yes.
they may be.
Is the remaining of the alicatado is to give the impression that is still an alicatado. That's from the beginning of the 15th. And there is another comment about the production of Garrard Millwall pottery, and that's from this last panels from Sevilla. There is any connection with Garrard Millwall pottery and the Charles Pigman production in Sevilla or Sandeman that are working in Sevilla making.
I don't know about Links pottery because I just do bill of materials. I haven't looked at the links with pottery because I've got too much work on, too many publications. But it's a shame.
But that's exactly contemporary.
Yeah, but there are people in Museum of London Archaeology with special knowledge who would know that, yes, because we do occasionally talk to the pottery people, but not often. The other thing I'm thinking that I'm not sure about is whether the ridge tiles, the ones with the ridges and the ones as point hexagonal ones are earlier than the square ones. Mm-hmm. So that's when it comes to the Antwerp, they definitely are. They get rid of the pointy ones and just produce square tiles later on. But I don't know really. But my gut feeling, which is usually right, is that they probably earlier. Being London being obviously the capital city, and then later on the Woking Palace and other ones came in, but it's pure speculation. There's no dating evidence.